On this Memorial Day, I am just going to turn some pins, and I thought I would just do a live as I do this, and that way you can kind of see what the process is. And I've got 4 queued up that I'm going to work with here for a little bit. I'm not going to stay live for that whole time, but I'm in the process of also grilling. Smoking. I got 2 nice briskets on the grill right now. So if you see some smoke in the background, that's nothing in the shop here. That's out there on the deck. But I've got these Zen kits that I've really enjoyed putting together, and I've got these pin blanks that actually it's 1 blank that I've cut down and put the tube in it. For the Zen, this is what I'm going to be working with today, just turning these down. Let you see what it looks like. And I've got the lathe here all set to do our highest RPMs. You want to go around 300 RPM, near there, when you're drilling, but obviously you don't want to turn at that level. You want to be a lot higher, so I think my lathe probably will do around 2,500 RPM, I'm guessing. And so I've got that set and ready to go. And now I just have to get my bushing kit out, and I got to find it. This is the Pressimo kit there. That's not the one we want. Well, sure thought I had these all ready to go for this live. I may have to disconnect and come back once I find my bushings. Here we go. I did have them set aside. I just set them aside in another location. All right. So the bushings, if you've never done one of these kits before, it's important that you have a bushings, and I have what's called a mandrel saver. This is called a mandrel, or mandrel saver. Typically you have a rod like this, and you have these bushings. And the bushings are important. I'll show you here in a minute. They give you the width, the circumference of what you're turning. And we're going to take the blank that we've prepared and put the second bushing on there. And the mandrel saver is good instead of just a straight mandrel. The mandrel, you can put too much pressure here and actually warp your pin, and then you end up with the wrong shape and pin, and we don't want that, obviously. So what I use is this mandrel saver. Sorry, I did a lot of cleaning and reorganizing yesterday, and I don't know where I put everything. Here we go. So the difference between a mandrel saver and a mandrel is that the mandrel, when you slide this up, it connects right here, and you can put too much pressure here and you can actually bend this bar. Well, the mandrel saver doesn't do that. It allows this to float all the way through, and you connect with the bushing there, and then we tighten this down and give this a crank or two, and this makes this nice and tight. So when I turn this on, it's going to have lots of spin, but there's not any warp because there's nothing putting direct pressure on the rod itself. So that's what we will use is this mandrel saver. Highly recommend it. It's definitely worth the little extra money that you would use to get that rolling. So that's what it sounds like. And just going to take my fluid here and just see me start to pull some material off. I want to get it all the way down to the circumference of these bushings. So you can see I've got an eighth of an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch to pull off of here. And just move it back and forth as smoothly as I can. I have a couple other tools that I take off a lot more material a lot faster, but they also make a lot of mess. And for the live, I didn't want to do that. So my lathe is not a high-dollar lathe at all. I see some of these guys turning with these high-dollar lathes that are nice and quiet and smooth. It's not what I have, but we're making it anyway. I typically vacuum with my shop vac after I turn every pin, because you can see the amount of shaving that I get is pretty substantial. This is a really pretty blank. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. Myers Penco is the manufacturer of the blank. They've got an amazing process, and where I get all my blanks from. Leave a comment when you get on the live if you'd like. I'll give you a shout out if I see your comment. I haven't done many of these on live, primarily because this has been a lot of learning process for me. But I also find it very peaceful. And typically I turn my phone off while I'm out here, so it's a good time of unplugging. What are you doing for your Memorial Day today? Like I said, I'm making 2 briskets. I don't get that opportunity very often because briskets are expensive. Back when my son worked at Kemp's Butchering, it was a little more affordable for us, but that's not the case anymore. So you prepare this blank. It comes in about a 9-inch stick, and this is about 4.5 inches, maybe 4 inches. And you have to cut it in half, and there's a brass rod that you put down inside it. You typically super glue it. I've had some bad luck with CA. Mainly it's setting before I can get the brass tube put into it. And so then I end up having to adjust, and that's been a little frustrating. So I am changing to what's called a 5-minute epoxy. It's on order, don't have that yet. But CA glue doesn't set fast until you don't want it to. When you don't want it to, it all of a sudden sets instantly. I haven't been able to figure out how they've done that, but you see the diameter of this blank is dropping off quite a bit, and the way you can really tell is if you look right on the edges where the bushings are at, you can see it was about 1/8 of an inch, now it's about 1/16 of an inch. Like I said, I have some other tools that will take it off faster, but it also is a lot less contained as far as the mess goes, and for our live, I didn't want to have it all over my face and hair and everything else when I did it. So I'm just kind of taking it slow, enjoying the process. I will eventually be moving away from these kit pins. A kit pin, basically, you have the brass tube that comes with it, and the section, which is where the nib plugs into, comes with it. It's usually a metal or a prefab section, and the cap, in the case of the kits that I'm using, the cap comes already made, so I don't have to turn that separate. There are kits that you turn both the cap and the barrel, but I haven't made many of those. I eventually will move away from the kit pins for the most part and do what's called a kitless pin. I have all the tools for it, but the work that goes into making a kitless pin is substantial, and there's a lot that can go wrong with it, and I've attempted a couple times, and I get to a certain point and end up messing it up, but I'd rather make good pins, even if they're more basic, than spend a whole lot of time making a kitless pin and then blow it out at the last minute. Because with a kitless pin, you make everything. You do all the threads, you do all the, well, I mean, the whole thing is made out of a blank that you see here. It's a lot more involved, a lot more that can go wrong. I am going to start making those at some point, but honestly, there are a lot of good kitless pin manufacturers. Abby Markov, Myers Penco, Rise Wilson, just kind of throwing out some names there that I've been seeing who live in Walltown Pens. Mike Green, he is excellent. Green's pen fun. In fact, I'm going to be set up with him on the Saturday of the St. Louis Pen Show. I can't afford to go down Thursday, or I would. I can't afford a table, but Mike's going to let me sit with him, and we're going to fellowship for the day, and I'm going to bring some of my handmade pens, and I don't want to cramp what he's doing at all, but he is a veteran pen show guy, and this will be my first. Try to keep the shadings pulled off as much as I can because I want to be able to see this bushing clearly, so I know how much more I have to go. You can really see how it's pulling off of there. People often ask me what's the material that I'm using, and this is it's alumalite, made by Myers Pen Co. It's a type of plastic that is hand poured. Those guys can pretty much make anything you want in terms of colors and swirls and patterns and all that. Once I get this turned where I'm happy with it, then I'm going to go ahead and show you how I polish it up. I've been really working on that process, and I think I've got it down to a science. I do it a little bit differently than what I've seen. I think I do probably a little more steps than some people do. Some people use an air gun to pull those off. I don't have an air gun. I do have a little compressor, but it's in my garage rather than here in the shop. Getting very close to having it done here. All right. One more check. I have one more tool that I always finish off with. This is one that has just a little different edge on it, a leading edge. And this is what I smooth it down with. I have to do very little sanding when I'm done. I've been very fortunate that these turn out extremely smooth. So then it really just becomes a polishing that I do. And that's what I'm checking every time you see me doing this. I'm feeling any roughness at all. And I'm also feeling this edge right here because I don't want there to be a lip. Hello, Matt. Thanks for watching. I see you connected. Okay, I think we're good. Let's see what that looks like. Real good. All right, so I'm going to vacuum this up a little bit here, and bear with me for just a minute while I get the vacuum out. It's going to be a little loud for a minute, but it won't take long. All right, so we've got that not completely clean, but close enough for government work, as they say. So now let me show you what we do for the polishing process. All right, so I use a wet sanding method to get this all polished up. I'm going to put this down on my lathe because the lathe is iron and it will rust if it gets water on it. So by putting a towel down, I take care of that. In fact, I like to just kind of wipe it down just a little bit before we get started. So you can kind of see it already has a beautiful, beautiful swirl pattern in there. But that's going to really come alive. I start with a 600 grit sandpaper, and I work my way all the way up to a 12,000 grit sandpaper. And so some people don't do quite that much, but for me, I find that it works very well to do it that way. So I drop my sandpaper down in water, and then I'm just going to kind of, I'm not pushing on it. because this will generate heat. That's one of the reasons for the water too, to kind of keep it cool. Dip it a couple times in between. And again, this is just smoothing it and polishing it. I'm not trying to really remove a lot of material. I don't need to, because when I was done turning it, it was already really smooth. So that's the 600. Now moving to the 800. Again, I'm not pushing at all. I don't want to generate heat. The alumalite or acrylic, however you want to say it, is it can crack if it's got too much heat. In fact, I have made the mistake early on in my drilling. I thought I was putting enough lube down on my drill bit, and I wasn't, and it got just a little bit too hot, and it cracked one of my blanks. That was the 1000. Now we're moving to a micro pad that is 2000 grit. So I just dip it down in the water and touch it, move it back and forth just a little bit. You're going to really start seeing the colors pop as this gets polished more and more. Now 2400. And kind of, if I don't cover it up with my finger, you can see the grit number on the pad right at the tip of my finger there. $3,000. $3,200 or $3,400, I can't remember. 3,300, one of those. $3,600. $4,000. This one's 6,000. This one's 8,000. When I'm calling out these numbers, that's the number of granules of sand on the sandpaper. So I'll tell you that I do not feel any difference really between the 6,000 and the 8,000 and the 12,000. But the blank does, because it just really makes it pop as I'm doing this process. I've seen a lot of other guys sand with about 6 steps, and like I said, I just do a little more than that. And as I touch this now, it is just smooth as butter. And the last one is 12,000. that's done. Now I'll just kind of dry it off here. And I'll hold this up for the camera here once I'm completely done with it. Now, the last part is I have this Novus plastic polish. Some folks use like McGuire's Par Wax, and I've seen a number of different products, but this is the one that so far I've used. It doesn't take much, and in fact, when I do this, it could throw some of it on the camera. Try to avoid that if possible, but I just kind of apply just a little couple drops of this on there. I don't want to force it, again, because it generates heat, and I'm turning at about 2,500 RPM. So heat is not your friend in terms of these blanks. But I'm just kind of lightly rubbing that, and that is done. So I'm going to clean this off. We'll take it apart and show you what it looks like, and then we'll get another one ready to go. So, all right, so I'm going to pull this up so you can really see what that looks like. It is gorgeous. See the shimmers in that, and the depth and the movement. Again, all this blank is made by Myers Pinco, and just gorgeous. So the next part of that, when I get in the house, I won't do it on the live stream, but I have those parts that I use a press. I brought it inside just because at night I can do it better than standing out here and doing it. But I use a press, and I just press these down. And so I'll have the cap, and I'll have the nib section down here. And, so this one's ready to go. I will polish it just with a cleaner when I get inside, in case there's any dust residue that I haven't already pulled off of here with all the various polishing. But that one is ready to go, so I'm just going to kind of set that aside in a place where it won't roll off. And then I'm going to move all my water and my sand tools. I don't want to get that soiled with all of the turnings that I'm getting ready to do on the next one. All right, so another one out here. All right, so this one I have about 1 millimeter or less. It's just a little tiny bit too short, so the blank doing multiple things at once. The brass tube that goes inside it is just sticking out a very tiny bit. So I'm going to trim that off. You won't be able to see this because I don't have the camera aimed, but give me just a second. So I'll show you here. This is the brass tube, goes down inside it, and this was sticking out just a very tiny bit. And also I kind of noticed, I don't know if you can see, it's just a hair sticking out on that side. And so this side is the end of the blank, so it's nice and flush, but this side has just a hair. So what I'm going to do to clean that up is I have what's called a barrel trimmer, and I'll show you what that looks like. This looks just like this, and it has a blade that goes around the middle here. I'll show you what it looks like on the drill. What I do is I put this down inside that tube, and I'm going to turn this a couple times. And that just pulls anything sticking out from that, so it's nice and square. And the reason why you want to do that is because when I go to put all the pieces on this, if there's anything not perfectly square, you're going to know it in the metal pieces that I slide on with the press. So that's why we do that. All right, so we've got that onto the bushing. The other bushing here, just like that. You slide the mandrel, the tailstock up onto the mandrel saber. Crank it down. Do just a slight turn to tighten that up nice. I want this underneath as close as I can get it without touching. Like that, and then away we go. This is going to be the last one that I turn on the slide, primarily because it's starting to get hot. And I'm going to want to turn my fan on, and the fan is so loud, it's a lot louder than a lathe, I think. And you won't be able to hear much when that fan is on, I don't think. Once I cut this blank with a little chop saw that I have, then I have to put it on the lathe and drill. For this particular kit, it requires a 10.5 inch or 10.5 millimeter drill bit. Does make a mess, doesn't it? Hi Wyatt, thanks for joining. If you're just joining, I'm just turning some pins and showing how I go through the process. Already done one. Working on the second. Woo. That's what we don't want. That's usually, when that happens, it's usually because I've not been paying attention to what I'm doing. There is a right angle to hold your lathe tools, and if you get 90 degrees to this, you can cause blowouts like that. You're going to have to sharpen this tool. I'm concerned with how that one's going to look when it's all said and done. I may have to do some filler on it. Let's see. In fact, I want to check it. Yep, we're going to have to do some filler on that one, unfortunately. You can see right there I got a little break, and I'm not, we'll see if I can turn that out. But it's, I suspect it's going to leave a little bit of a notch, but I'm going to have to fill with some CA, which is going to slow us down. I don't know if we're going to be able to get any more out of that blowout spot or not, but we're going to see. Definitely feel it. Let's see if that did anything at all in getting that space I blew into it. Yeah, it's definitely fixable. Pull a little bit more off of there. Again, when you see me moving my hands across here, I'm feeling for anything that is, I shouldn't feel it at all. I should feel just as smooth as can be all the way across. And every now and then I'll feel just a little bit, and I'll come back and I'll take just a little bit off to pull that out. Looks like it's good. That's nice and smooth now. All right. Okay. All right. So, tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to have to glue this and let it sit for a little bit, but I'll show you what that looks like. So what I'm looking at is just there's two small spots. I'm not sure it can show up on the camera. You can kind of see it in that light right there, where I kind of chipped it. And there's another much smaller one on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to pull off this. Well, that's not good. I just pulled the whole brass tube out, which I'll have to re-glue that, which is fine. I'm not really doing any more turning, so it's not going to be a problem, but I don't want to glue with this on because the glue will make this stick, obviously, and that's what I don't want. But what I do want is just a minute to get my glue. This is a thick CA glue, CA meaning super glue, basically. And in addition to being an adhesive, one of the other benefits of this is it's also a gap filler. In fact, it even says right on there, gap filler. So I'm putting on this silicone, or I guess it's plastic, I don't really know. I know it doesn't stick. It also doesn't go on when I want it to. I'm putting this on because the super glue won't stick to it. It doesn't like going on to the mandrel saver. It does okay. We will make it work. Alright, so I'm going to put that in like that. I'm going to just do a small dollop on the end there. I'm going to come around to this side. Let's do a small dollop on that. activator. So this will cause that CA glue to set up instantly. Just a little bit more in this bigger hole. Alright, so that should make that set up instantly. Just a short little bit. You know, sometimes you have mistakes that you can't recover from and you just have to throw the blank out. Sometimes, though, when you make mistakes, you can fix it pretty easily, so don't let it intimidate you. That's part of the learning, right? Sorry, I'm going to turn on the vacuum again. All right. Let's see. Feels good. I'm going to hit that with some sandpaper. Come on. The old girl doesn't want to run. I'm going to change my belt location real quick. bushing is in there pretty tight. I'm probably going to have to work on that a little bit. Get that pulled off. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect from the line, but thank you guys for watching. Does the resin make all the white stringy stuff? Yeah. So it does. As you're pulling that off with the tool, that's what makes all that white stringy stuff. It literally is coming off in that tiny a bit at one time. And so I like it when it's all stringy like that and small because it vacuums real easy. Sometimes it's more especially when I use the carbide tips that I have, a lot of times it removes a lot more material at once, and sometimes it makes quite a bit of mess. So, yep, that is what makes that stringy material. I am going to try to turn just a little bit. I haven't had to do this before, but I am going to try to turn that area that I just glued to see if I can smooth it up a little bit, because it is feeling a little rough to me. The right tool. I want one that's good and sharp. Still not happy with that. But it wasn't that bad. I think that might have it. Yep, once I get that sanded and polished, you won't even know that happened. Definitely heating up. The temperature has increased. 5 or 6 degrees just since turning this one. See, they just left a little bit of a lip, and again, you want it perfectly square, so a little lip will cause it not to go together just right. All right. Now the next step, we're going to go back to our polishing process. Get this out of the way. Clean up the little bit extra shavings that I just pulled off of there. Set it down to protect the lathe. And here we go. Now, when you see that stop, the reason why it stopped is because that brass rod came out. I'm not real concerned about that because I can work with it, but that's what's happening. Because the brass rod is not attached anymore, if I put too much pressure on it, it causes that blank to stop while I do this. So I'll go back inside and do it. It'll be fine. There's 600. Now 800 grit. Thousand grit. Thousand grit. 2400 grit. 3000 grit. 3200. 600. $4,000. $6,000. $8,000. Lastly, $12,000. All right. Yeah. Dry it off. Notice polish. Off. All right, let's see how it looks. I'm seeing lots of shimmers. All right, let's show you. Isn't that a beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? All right, so that's all we're going to do for this live. I want to thank you all for watching, and if you tune in later, that's fine too. It's getting hot, so I'm going to turn my fan on. So if you are with family today, I hope you have just a very good day, and if you're alone today, well, hope you have somebody that you can call and spend the day with. Today's a good day to be with people. So, hope you have a great day. Happy Memorial Day to you. We'll catch you next time on our next live. Thanks for watching.